Normally, autumn seems like a cooler time of the year. But for Ukraine, it turned out to be no less hot than the autumn of 1944 for the anti-Nazi coalition force. In recent months, the armed forces of Ukraine have managed not only to take back dozens of settlements from the tenacious clutches of the Russian invaders in southern and eastern Ukraine, but also greatly accelerate the pace at which they're eliminating enemy infantry and military equipment. But will the Ukrainian army's operators be able to stop all the vicious threats the Russians have set, protecting the civilian population of the region? What's the most likely outcome of the battle for Kherson? And most importantly, will the liberation of Kherson be able to finally break the back of the Russian military occupation? We'll try to answer all these questions in today's video. Kherson has been under occupation since March of 2022, and since then fighting has practically continued unceasingly in that region. Additionally, there's a magical place of power not far from this city called Chernobevka, which has turned into a sort of local meme for all Ukrainians. The fact is that at the Chernobyl airfield, the Russian invaders had placed military equipment and ammunition, which Ukrainian artillerymen methodically covered with well-aimed missile strikes over and over again, generating a full-blown show in the form of detonating ammunition. According to the Russians, Chernobevka was a suitable place for the withdrawal of reserves from Crimea. In early March, there were reports of an extremely successful strike by artillerymen with the armed forces of Ukraine. As a result, the Russian army was lessened by more than 20 helicopters, this having been confirmed by pictures from the Planet Labs Orbital Survey Service at different intervals. At the end of the same month, various media outlets also shared satellite imagery from the Chernobyl airfield, demonstrating that the Russians were forced to relocate their helicopters to avoid repeat attacks. A little later, a video appeared on the web showing the occupying army as it dragged its scrap metal away from the airfield. Chernobevka symbolizes perfectly the depth of incompetency possessed by the Russian troops and their command, having become a colloquial word meaning the repetition of mistakes or a place where it's easy to get into but hard to get out. After the capture of Kherson by the Russian occupation forces, the inhabitants were by no means going to accept the new orders given, regularly organizing rallies, sabotaging, and refusing to use any services imposed by Russia or pay for things in rubles. Moreover, despite the impending humanitarian catastrophe in the city and its surrounding area, when the Russian propaganda media and the military staged a demonstrative distribution of humanitarian aid on camera, people refused to accept any help from the hands of the invaders, and the unfortunate journalists failed to create the expected picture for their government media. Although the locals managed to steal the armored personnel carriers from under the noses of the armed Russians with their bare hands during one of these rallies, some public meetings ended in civilian casualties due to the Russian military opening fire on them and using frag grenades. But this did not break the citizens' spirit, serving to only further strengthen their partisan movements. Leaflets with the inscription, "Kherson is Ukraine," "Death to the Russian invaders," and many others appeared on the streets. And Russian night patrols often disappeared without a trace in the morning. At least, that's how their command described their loss. As time went on, the so-called Second Army of the World began to deflate quickly, but the number of its dead soldiers, on the contrary, increased rapidly, successfully reaching the threshold of 65,000 dead Russians and a ratio of 6.5 Russian soldiers killed for every one Ukrainian soldier. The defeats on the battlefields, futile attempts to intimidate peaceful cities with missile strikes by destroying critical infrastructure, as well as logistical problems all caused by the already low morale of the invaders to be even more seriously tested by the start of the autumn counteroffensive from the armed forces of Ukraine. Under the leadership of the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Valery Zaluzhny, the Ukrainian army developed a clear strategy for exhausting the enemy and distributing his attention along the front line, due to the soldiers carried out successful aerial reconnaissance using drones and night sorties of the MTR behind enemy lines. After this, they evicted the invaders out of the most advantageous strategic points, freeing one settlement after another. While Russia continued to let its soldiers go to slaughter, announcing their fated mobilization, the Ukrainians were confidently plugging away at the enemy with their own artillery and supplies provided by the country's allies who've been supporting it in this difficult time. The real heroes of both the eastern and southern fronts were the American howitzers M777, MLRS M142, HIMARS, and MLRS M270. But let's not discount the hundreds of M113 armored personnel carriers, FV-103 Spartan HMMWV Mastiff, Wolfhound TSV, Husky TSV, Bushmaster FIM-92, Stinger, Stormer HVM, Starstreak, Vampire CUAS, Flank Panzer Gepard, PZH-2000 self-propelled guns, self-propelled howitzers M19 Paladin, and many other devices that help the Ukrainian army to effectively destroy enemies on the battlefield every day. At the same time, despite the impressive supply of missiles, Russia not only exhausted most of it by the end of the summer, but was forced to switch to less accurate ammunition by mid-spring. In the first 11 days of the war, the Russians fired about 600 missiles, among which were the winged Kalibrs and Iskanders, and then they quickly replaced them with older KH-101, KH-555, and KH-22, and others. Some of these Soviet missiles are anti-ship, which once again underlines the growing shortage of certain types of weapons on the part of the aggressor. According to the head of the Ukrainian GUR, Kirill Budanov, the stock of Iskanders in the hands of the Russian invaders today is no more than 13%. The Kalibr PL and Kalibr NK about 43%, and the KH-101 and the KH-555 missiles around 45%. For example, Kalibr missiles today have become almost gold for the Russian regime. Previously, it could produce 150 to 180 rounds of ammunition per year, despite the fact that 70% of the components were foreign, and now even if the Kremlin arranges for the smuggling of some components and transfers production to military rails, the number of missiles produced per week would still be 1 to 2 units. Intensive shelling of Ukrainian cities to intimidate civilians would require the distraught dictator to utilize dozens of missiles of various types in just one day. In other words, shelling at the level of 2,000 to 3,000 rockets per month and hundreds of rockets every day is now out of the question. Otherwise, the so-called Second Army of the World would use up all its emergency supplies in a maximum of 2 weeks. It's also not possible to create any new KH-47M Kinzhal missiles because it would include more than 130 foreign components, most of which were supplied by the world leader in integrated circuits, Analog Device, a company from the US. At the same time, the volume of working non-renewable rockets inherited after the collapse of the USSR is set at a certain number. Russia can only remove these from storage, restore them and, depending on their suitability for use, send them to the airfields. In an attempt to fill the shortage of ammunition, Russia turned to Iran, a country under international sanctions for more than 50 years, after which American sources received information about the possible transfer of the Fateh 110 and Zolfaghar short-range ballistic missiles by Tehran, capable of hitting targets at a distance of 186 to 434 miles, or 300 to 700 kilometers. The Iranian regime has previously committed to supplying the Kremlin with 2,400 Shahed-136 drones and several other types of drones, including Shahed-129, which is a pathetic parody of the American MQ-1 Predator. However, even with all the handicraft and relative cheapness of Iranian missiles, the stock of transferred warheads, with Russia's thoughtless manner of waging war, will be enough for only about a week of attacks, if not less. Taking into account the fact that the Ukrainian air defense fighters have perfectly demonstrated their skills by shooting down modern Russian missiles with the available Soviet weapons, it's unlikely that the statistics of downed shells will decrease, especially taking into account the already received air defense systems from the Allies, such as the latest Iris-T, NASAMS, and other systems. In fact, rather the opposite. But let's get back to Kherson. After successfully liberating more than 3,500 square miles or 9,000 square kilometers and destroying over $673 million worth of Russian equipment in September of this year alone, the soldiers of the armed forces of Ukraine have decided not to stop there, confidently setting up another hot zone for the enemy. Ukrainian Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov said that in recent weeks the main problem for the army was not so much the Russian soldiers, but rather the rain in southern Ukraine. With the help of HIMARS and other weapons, Ukrainian fighters managed to cut off the supply of ammunition and manpower to occupied Kherson, forcing the Russians to use pontoon crossings and made the Antonovsky Bridge unsuitable for transporting military equipment. They also took full fire control of all bridges across the Dnipro and Kherson region. In August, the armed forces of Ukraine broke through the first line of enemy defense in the Kherson region, forcing them to dig in closer to the city. After some time, the fighters pushed the invaders out of Ukrainian territory step by step, clearing more than 90 settlements from the invaders and freeing about 12,000 people living there. In recent weeks, the enemy has been gathering the remnants of the most combat-ready units with all its might, transporting even such rarities as the reactivated T-62 to the south, and spreading fake info via the government media about the withdrawal of troops to the left bank of the Dnipro. In parallel with this, the occupiers are also moving all state institutions in the shortest possible time, and the pro-Russian Gauleiters of Kherson and the local elite hastily removed all property and documents from the city, preparing it for the inevitable surrender. Thus, time inevitably brings Ukraine and Russia to the battle for Kherson, which will most certainly become one of the most decisive battles in this war. Despite all the skepticism displayed by military experts, the Russian dictator may still use one of his dirty tricks on the battlefield. For example, according to Russian Defense Minister Shoigu, Ukraine intends to neutralize the aggressor with a dirty bomb, dropping it on the country. And although no adequate politician believed this nonsense, Russia tried so hysterically to impose its own lies that it made a request for a closed meeting of the UN Security Council. Ukrainian Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov and President Volodymyr Zelensky declared Ukraine open to any monitoring missions from international organizations and invited IAEA experts to check the nuclear facilities that Russia claims to be manufacturing sites for a dirty bomb. But the final nail in the coffin for those Russian lies was a tweet from the official account of the Slovenian government. The Russian Foreign Ministry announced that Ukraine was in the final stages of creating a dirty bomb, illustrating the publication of photographs, allegedly of the production process itself. The Slovenian government immediately dispelled this fake news, saying that the photos attached by the Russian Foreign Ministry were taken by the Slovenian organization ARAO, the Agency for Radioactive Waste Management, back in 2010. The country's authorities assured everyone that the radioactive waste was under reliable protection and would not be used to create dirty bombs. Another likely scenario for Russia is the blowing up of the dam of the Kakhovka Reservoir, which would cause not only colossal destruction due to the flooding of the homes of thousands of people living in the Kherson region, but also significantly slow down the advance of the armed forces of Ukraine in the south of Ukraine, something the Kremlin is very afraid of. Vladimir Zelensky, in turn, said that Russia had prepared a large-scale disaster by mining the dam and the units of the Kakhovka hydroelectric power station. Here, we again return to the question of just how much logic the Russian command really possesses. The left bank of the Dnipro, where the civilian and pro-Russian authorities of Kherson were evacuated, is more gentle. Consequently, in the event of a breakthrough of the Kakhovka Dam, all temporary crossings through which it would be impossible to supply Russian troops on the right bank would be carried away by millions of cubic meters of water, and the Russian force between Dnipro and the left bank of the Inglitz River would be immediately cut off, after which it would quickly run out of all available ammunition. If part of the troops stay in Kherson, surrounded by the armed forces of Ukraine, then their command definitely won't dare supply the invaders by air, fearing Ukrainian air defense. Especially considering that Russian planes have not even risked flying into Ukrainian airspace for a long time. Ukrainian anti-aircraft gunners and pilots quickly ground any birds that violate this unspoken ban. In other words, although the offensive will slow down due to the impassable nature of said territory, such a crazy move by Russia would do more harm than good to its own soldiers, who would be forced to leave Kherson and almost the entire right bank of the Dnipro even faster. Speaking about the possible undermining of the Kakhovskaya hydroelectric power station by Russian invaders, the Secretary of the National Security Council of Ukraine, Alexei Danilov, has assured us that the idea of water supply to Crimea in the event of an explosion would disappear for 10 to 15 years, maybe forever. As we can see, so far all Russian provocations in the south of Ukraine are somehow reduced to a potential catastrophe. It's ironic that the main catastrophe, which has already occurred right under the noses of Russian commanders and their dictator, seems to be ignored by the authorities and the people of the aggressor country. The low morale of soldiers, massive funerals for mothers, the dwindling stocks of weapons, problems in the economy, the withdrawal of Western companies, and hundreds of sanctions in various fields that have shattered the future of millions of Russians. This is the price of trying to seize foreign territory. Is it worth it? The answer is obvious. One can only hope that all other dictators will learn well the lesson Ukraine and its allies have put forward. Life will conquer death, and light will conquer darkness. And what do you think? What will be the most likely outcome of the battle for Kherson, and why? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell for more content just like today's. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.